We're trying to push to YouTube, Annie Rose.
That's working. Call to order this meeting of the Boards and Commissions Appointment Committee for Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. Present are Hoy.
Nishioka.
Nordyke.
All right, thank you everybody for being here. And we have staff also. And I think we just have one agenda item, so it should be a quick meeting.
I love that positive.
Yeah. So we are here to appoint members to the revenue task force, and I'll turn it over to Courtney to kick this off, and then I think she'll probably turn it over to any others.
Thank you so much, and thank you as well for all of the unfair timelines that we presented to you in order to have this group seated for their first meeting, which we've docketed as January 30th. And so I'll just do, I don't remember, but I'll just do a couple quick things about December 11 at your meeting. You approved the formation of the task force, and we got right into recruiting candidates. We had about 160 people apply, and we had a lot of great communication with many of the candidates between here and there as they were learning more about the task force and our expectations of in-person meetings, and that the meetings would be streaming live, as is our practice with every public meeting. And when we shared that out with all of the nominees, we did lose a couple of people who had either pre-existing travel plans or other things. And it's also true that we did see a lot of applicants go halfway through the process and drop out, like not quite completing the application online. So I wrote about 40 emails to people who had dropped out and just said, hey, did you want to finish? Here's how you can link back in and finish your application. So we've had quite a bit of communication, done really well to have 160 applicants. And what we have before you today is a list of your nominees and your colleagues' nominees. And then we've sorted the applicants across those characteristics that you identified as having interest in ensuring that the group could be widely representative of our community as they consider these really important issues. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Annie Rose, who's going to walk us through what we have, what we know, and where we could use your input.
Before we do that, Courtney, I apologize if I missed this in your comments, but could you characterize, if you know, why people withdrew, like people that actually completed the application process and then withdrew? Do we know generally why that happened?
It would be a mix of factors. Most often, it probably would have been associated with the meeting dates that we selected. So we were really trying for a mix of dates so that we could get the best representation possible. We didn't want to only do Tuesdays and, and so we've been very careful to select them so that the information that we're receiving from staff and the consulting firm about the revenue options, as well as when the community engagement touch points are and how that community engagement feeds the process. So it's a very intricate dance. And so when we publish the dates and that expectation of in-person, because we really want these to be very well deliberated conversations amongst the task force members. And we find that remote participation can sometimes hinder that dialogue. So we really try to remember out loud our expectations about participation. And in some cases that caused people to reflect that they didn't have all of those dates available, or we're going to miss some of it. Okay. So that's mostly why it was a scheduling challenge for many. So thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to join the meeting today. As Courtney mentioned, what I would like to do is just walk through some background context, some reminders about what we put in the charter for this group in particular, and then go through all of the applicants. So we're first going to start with the ward nominations that came in from every council member, and I'll be able to provide an overview of sort of what does the group look like with all of those nominees in place. And and then we can start discussing sort of how to fill in any gaps that you all see. So we will get to those lovely handouts that you have in front of you in one moment, but if you can indulge me, I have a few slides to share before then. So can everyone see this presentation?
Yes.
All right, so I wanted to go through the charter requirements and then we'll get into the applicants as I mentioned. A couple things to note that I'm sure you are all aware of already. We are looking to create a group of 20 to 30 members and at least 2 alternates that will be ultimately appointed by City Council. In terms of the characteristics that Council requested and put into the task force, we have things like people who are interested in learning, listening, and asking good questions, demonstrating a willingness to collaborate and consider additional revenue options, comfortable working in a group. We know this will be highly interactive and collaborative as an experience, and then caring deeply about the future of the city. Those were kind of the very high-level general considerations. In addition to that, we know that the task force does need to be broadly or should be broadly representative of the community, both in terms of residents, business owners, folks with different lived experiences from different geographic areas, different stages of life, etc. In addition to that, we know that we want obviously community members at large, Salem residents or business owners. We want to have at least 2 representatives from each ward to ensure geographic diversity. And to that end, each council member and the mayor nominated 2 representatives, or were asked to go through that process. We also want to make sure that there's representatives of the Chamber of Commerce, business ownership, Salem 350, the Latino Business Alliance, as well as the City Employee Union representatives. So later in this process, we'll be going through each of the applicants that fit into some of those criteria as well to direct you there. But the first piece that I wanted to say, well, really we should say again, thank you to all of the 157 applicants who applied. It was really exciting to see all of the interest coming in. As Courtney mentioned, some of the applicants did need to withdraw, especially when they were notified of those meeting dates. But we still have quite, it's over 150 applicants that we have to consider today. And just one note, in addition to the applicants, there will be an ex officio member from the Oregon Department of Administrative Services who will serve as a non-voting member. So that will be separate to this process. So in terms of the 157 applicants that you had, I wanted to share just some background so you can kind of understand the group that we are working with here. As I mentioned, in terms of ward representation, we got applicants from every single ward, and we got a good number from every single ward, which was fantastic to see. In terms of race and ethnicity, the vast majority of applicants were white, but we do have some diversity represented here as well. In addition to that, we do have some pretty good age diversity here. It certainly skews into the older category, which is to be expected for a volunteer opportunity like this. But we did have applicants in each of the age ranges from everyone from under 25 to 65 and older. We also asked applicants around their sort of primary connection to the city of Salem. And obviously these may overlap, so we asked folks to select the sort of most critical relationship. The majority of applicants live in Salem and selected that as their primary relationship. However, we do have some who work or volunteer in Salem as their primary connection to the city or own a business or property within Salem. And I think it says 1% here, but I think we have one applicant who is going to school here as well. And then the last piece that I wanted to highlight here is in terms of housing and lived experience. Housing diversity, we have pretty limited diversity there. The vast majority of applicants live in single family homes. There are about 10 live in an apartment situation. We did not have any applicants report that they were in temporary shelter or unsheltered. In terms of lived experience, we do have some applicants who have, for example, earned less than a livable wage in the last 5 years, some who have lived unsheltered or under threat of losing shelter in the last 5 years, and some who have experienced food insecurity. But the majority of applicants clicked that none of these conditions apply to their life. So that is the big picture summary of the applicant pool. And actually, before we move on, any questions about any of that information that I just shared?
Annie, can you remind me, I wrote down LBA representative, chamber, union, DAS ex officio. Are we also looking for one or more representatives from social? There it is. That was the screen I was looking for.
And Salem 350.
And Salem 350, thank you.
Yes. And we'll also have noted, and we'll have this in your package, representatives from social service organizations as well. So that's another group that we'll be able to look at.
That's what I thought. I was just trying to confirm because sometimes it's easier to identify who we want for those slots, and that might, because I noticed there's some people who are nominated for a position who could also fill that role. So I don't want to jump the gun. I also want to make sure I understood who the other kind of special categories are. Thank you.
Absolutely.
There are quite a few moving pieces.
Right. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And once we get to see the ward representation, we'll be able to show you where you already have some overlap with these special categories. And then obviously we'll come to each one of these categories and we can talk through the applicants in each of those as well. Because we do expect that there will be some overlap here.
Got it.
All right. Well, then I think Courtney has shared most of this with you all, but you have this printout of all of the active applicants. We've removed the folks who have withdrawn from the process. It's organized so at the top of the list, we have the council ward nominees. Those are in green for the primary nominations or orange for the alternates. And then after that,
Annie Rose, in our vernacular in the room, the first 2 pages of nominees are councilor nominees, and then the third page is where we did receive alternate nominees from councilors.
Fantastic, thank you.
We are black and white.
Great. Okay, so first 2 pages then are those straight up nominees, third page
There's
alternates.
a question from Councilor Stapleton.
So I show 6 or 17 nominations.
So
Is
yes,
that-
we will get to that in one moment. Yes,
Go
no,
ahead.
you're right on track. The one thing that I did want to note is that we do have the other applicant characteristics noted throughout the piece that you have. Each applicant has an ID number so that we can reference them in that way if useful. But just so you know, we've included some of the most relevant application criteria on this page, but there are additional questions that were asked that are not included here. We just had to narrow it down just for ease of reading. So for example, every applicant was asked to say whether or not they are committed to the city of Salem and helping to resolve this problem, something like that. And we left that one off because basically every applicant clicked yes on that one. So just a heads up that there are a few of those additional pieces that are not there on your printout at least. Okay, now we get into the fun stuff. So I've summarized the ward representation here for you all. So in most of the wards, basically what was requested is that we would have at least 2 nominations from each council member plus 2 nominations from the mayor. Within that, we received that information from most folks. A couple things to note here is that with the mayor's additions, that brings additional ward representation. There's also an applicant from outside of Salem that has been added to this list that you see here. And then for the Ward 6 representation, Katie Martin was nominated for this. They did not fill out an application, but since being contacted, Katie Martin has said that she is interested in serving in this group. So we have an affirmative interest, but no application. So if you look on your spreadsheet, for example, there's no additional information about Katie Martin's application there because we don't have that info at this moment.
Councilor Nishioka has a question.
Yes.
Hi, Annie Rose. I feel that even though she has said yes, she should complete an application.
I think that's a great question for this group to decide on for sure.
Do we know why that didn't happen?
Well, we closed the application process for everyone at the same time, and this person may not have submitted an application when the application was open.
How did they get to the list then?
It was a nomination that was received by the councilor directly.
I didn't know that was part of the Was there any other nominations from Ward 6 that could have been chosen from?
There are quite a few nominees from Ward 6.
17% or something said was.
There are other applicants, but no other nominees for Ward 6, counselor nominees.
Yeah, it's a difference.
Seems to me that an application should be completed. And whether or not we should do it retro, that's a question I would have.
It's coming up for me in your situation when we were talking about block 50
Mhm.
and how like those people missed the deadline for, and then they weren't considered. Did we have anything in like kind of the rules or the parameters of this group that was set up to kind of address that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I went.
I'm kind of blown away just a little bit, so I'm trying to.
Well, it's kind of a left field,
Mhm.
like we had an application period and.
It was very publicized,
Yeah,
much public and blasted everywhere. And there's an expectation that you should fill out an application like everybody else. I can't compare and contrast this candidate with other candidates because all I have is a name. And presumably, does she live in Ward 6? Does she own a business in Ward 6? I don't know.
And we don't even know her address, do we?
Well, we can find those things out if we want to proceed.
Yeah, and I guess my thing too is that I feel really bad for everybody else who took the time to apply in Board 6 and then not even have any of those chosen is just very concerning for me. But I'll leave it at that. I'm sure we can continue the conversation.
okay,
So we'll come back to that piece because we'll have to make a decision there. But to give you a sense of how this sort of group shapes out, if the committee were to approve the nominated slate as it stands, absent that the one piece of information the summary does not include from the applicant that we are missing her information. But apart from that, there are 17 members on this list. We have representation from each ward and outside Salem, so good geographic diversity here. There are 13 residents. 2 members of this slate selected that they were a business or property owner. 1 is either a worker or a volunteer within the city of Salem. We do not have any students, and then we obviously have the 1 unknown there as well. We do have age diversity within this group, with membership ranging from the 26 to 34 age range up to the 65 plus age range. This does skew toward older applicants for sure, with half falling above or more than half falling above that 45 plus age category. There is limited racial, ethnic, language diversity. We do have 3 non-white applicants and 3 applicants who indicated that they speak a language other than English at home. Those are those 2 categories do not overlap. So you have 6 applicants total in this area. There's also limited diversity in housing and security. All applicants within this pool live in single-family homes. 2 applicants do report that they've earned less than the livable wage in the last 5 years, but 0 have experienced food or shelter insecurity. So I figured we could start here, just giving a general sense of this is the breakdown. Obviously, we'll go through each one of those additional categories that we talked about, like chamber representation, and we'll be able to fill in with additional applicants within this group. But any questions, concerns, discussion around the ward representation in and of itself?
I do have a question. Is this, so when you're saying ward representation, you're talking about nominees?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So there were 3 non-white nominees and 3 who speak a language other than English in the group of 17.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And so assuming this portfolio of counselor nominees, we would then turn to those affiliations. So Chamber of Commerce, Social Service, 350, all those. And could pause there and see how the composition is influenced, or choose to go deeper into the list of applicants to make the group a different set of composition in its entirety. So we're kind of looking at what we have and then figuring out how you want to build the profile of the group.
It seems to me that I like that approach. That seems like a good approach to me personally, but I think we need to settle who the nominees are. That's still an outstanding question that we just kind of went past. And because it seems like we got one nominee who doesn't, I mean, we went through painful conversations about application process, what it would mean, how you would nominate, who would nominate, and then where we would go from there. And we had one person who didn't do that. And I feel like, what was the point of all that discussion? What are the point of having the parameters? What's the point of doing this if we're not gonna follow the rules that we all agree to? I think it was unanimous, if I recall, but I'm not positive, but like, I don't know, I'm kind of baffled at this one, and I feel uncomfortable moving forward with a person that I don't know anything about, other than the name. So that's just where I'm at.
You are
Would it-
not comfortable.
I'm not comfortable with, when I just know the name, I don't know
Yeah,
anything.
don't know anything, I have nothing, and other than it was recommended, but the applicant and even the counselor didn't choose to select somebody from those that followed the guidelines that was set forth.
So long before I joined this council, I used to tell other boards I served on, respect the process, respect the outcome. So if you don't fill out an application, you're not up for consideration, in my opinion. It's, I mean, you have to follow the same process as everybody else. So I too,
There were several opportunities where the city said, there's still, 3 more days. So, I saw those kind of notifications that went out. And it wasn't like people who were unaware.
I mean, we have plenty of other folks to look at. for
Plenty of
Ward
other
6
folks,
who
probably.
did respect the process, who did fill out the application, and I think it's fair to hold everyone to that same expectation. That was very, we set ground rules for everybody to follow.
I'm seeing some names for Ward 6 that I feel would be very appropriate. So
Yeah, can we take a minute for the committee to go through and just read the nominees for Ward 6? That did, or
Absolutely.
not nominees, but the folks who put in their applications.
Mm.
And
Let's
they
take
are
some time
scattered
to
across
read through the
several
Ward
pages.
6 applicants. We'll take however much time, and then we can have a discussion on whether 1 or 2 additional applicants we'd want to add to this list.
thank you. See, she seemed very. You just clicked on. I know, things were just getting on, but I'm like, now I'm really cold.
Yeah, what is?
I was scared that you said it.
Oh, I know. That's why I brought layers for this room.
Do
People are determined to get this meeting concluded. I know this is a tactic.
That's exactly, sure.
A tactic like, okay, we're.
Except it's
Time.
it's a tactic in every meeting that happens in this room, because this kind of happens constantly. It's very hot and early.
That's funny. Maybe it's all those windows making it a little drafty in here, making it hard to control the
I
temperature.
think it's just an old building and the HVACs never work very well in old buildings.
Seems right.
Any of, these folks do any of you guys know any of these people?
I do.
I know a couple.
You know, a couple of them? That's always helpful for me if you have a relationship with them and.
Well, probably wouldn't go that far.
So I think that one of the things that would be helpful for me to hear from the group because I think I have a recollection of the conversation, but I want to make sure that it's not just my recollection. I remember specifically Councilor Stapleton, you saying that we want to be, and then maybe it was Councilor Phillips, sorry, who said we want to be sure we have people who are interested in developing new revenue, not people who don't, who aren't. We don't want to try to have to convince people that that's the
Yes,
solution we're looking for.
yes.
That was, yeah. that was-
So I have some concerns. And this kind of goes back to our nominee list. I think one person has spent a number of meetings telling us that we don't have a problem. And yet we don't need the revenue yet. They seem to be on the list of nominees, and I want to just make sure that we're all okay with that. And then in looking at these Ward 6 folks, I know of at least one person who is pretty vocal in Ward 6 about taxes in general and not being in favor of taxes. So those are questions that we have on the.
So I agree with you in that this is not a committee to be reviewing the budget or bringing up points of cutting. This is a revenue task force, and I made sure that when I was working in my office, if anybody made comments that they want to see the budget be adjusted or that they were ready to indicate that they felt they knew where it could be cut, it was like, well, then you're on the lower part of my selection process because you're not addressing what this task force is designated to do. So I agree with you in the sense that if the goal of the person coming into that meeting, and I even got very concerned when they didn't check both boxes when
Yeah.
it said, I'm willing to listen, to understand. When that box wasn't checked, it was like, well, then why would I be selecting this? So I felt that people on this task force should be coming in, understanding that there is a deficit that needs to be reviewed in the sense of trying to find avenues of revenue that would be acceptable in the community. And that we're willing to listen and learn instead of coming in with set decisions already made.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I look at who I think would bring a lot of. What I'm trying to say is I'm looking for the people who are scoring the highest, not the lowest for me right now.
Yes,
I don't know anyone in Ward 6 very well, to be honest. So I don't know these individuals, but candidate 134, if you use their ID numbers, they're in numerical order.
that's a good idea. Yeah.
That candidate 134 brings diversity on multiple levels, and I would love to see that. This is a person under the age of 25 who's earned less than the livable wage, who identifies as a person of color from one of our most diverse wards. So although I wish the candidate put more information on why they're interested, I will say that there are a lot of other things in here. In person says, I've lived for a long time in Salem. Would I have liked more to expand upon that? Sure, that would be ideal. But I feel that this person, it sounds like they, I want to give a place to those that want to belong in our community. That sounds like someone who's invested in the long-term future of Salem. And for this task force, I'm intrigued by candidates who are interested in short-term as well as long-term solutions.
Excellent.
Candidate 134 really stood out to me.
And again, trying to find some of the diversity that we're needing to find. I felt that one that could read candidates, no, I can't find him. Getting them mixed up. Special functions. 71.
71. And if anyone has any comments on these, or knows these folks.
I don't know the person you just commented on, but I agree with the things that you said.
Okay, cool.
I do know candidate 71,
Okay.
very casually.
Okay.
This person has run for city council before I was on council.
Right.
So I've knocked on this person's door and had chats during when I was campaigning. So I'm familiar with them. Yeah, so.
I was seeing it as ethnic, speaks another language, age group kind of lower, 45 to 54. So that's what I was looking at. There was one other person that I saw also that I thought, that I will continue. I will speak to in a moment.
Just kind of starting back at the beginning, number 38, I thought was interesting because they represent 26% of the population, including disabilities.
Yes.
Forgotten. I thought that was interesting, although they are in the 65 and older category, which I know we're heavy in right now. I thought that was an interesting.
68?
38.
38, okay, I was gonna say that's not the word.
I was also intrigued by. There was a couple of younger ones here at the back, 143 and 137. Both of them are apartment dwellers, which is another area that we're missing out on.
Yes.
They're both in the younger categories. 137 has had some struggles financially, so understands them as well, and is of a different ethnicity. I starred them. I really liked what they had to say. It was a little bit more in depth and kind of a interesting array of what they do for a living and their perspective. I think was interesting too. It's hard to be thrown into this boat here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on doing this right now, so.
Yeah.
It's all right, you know, yes, you know.
So it sounds like. Oh,
Hello.
What did she say?
I think you did. Go ahead. What did you say?
I was just going to say that it sounds like 134, 71, 38, 141, and 137 are the potential Ward 6 under consideration. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I felt like I had one other person I wanted to bring up, and now I can't find them anymore.
Annie, would you repeat those numbers?
Yeah, 134, 71, 38, 141, and 137.
141 is actually Ward 2, so that one, 141.
It might have been 143.
Yeah, 143, I think.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the other candidate that jumped out at me, although I still score 134 higher. I haven't written down a score, but in my mind, I'm scoring 134 higher than 75, but 75 reports a career of working with at-risk youth and adults in correctional settings. I thought that's an intriguing perspective for, I mean, it's not a finance background, but it's a reminder of the kinds of folks who are where revenue requests hit differently. So that was another candidate. But you all have identified other ones too. So I think deciding two out of the several we've already raised will be a challenge.
So I hadn't noticed 75 prior, but I thought she looks intriguing to me as well.
75?
Yeah. So how do we decide on here?
Yes, exactly.
Can you, Annie, can you, can you
Put their name
read
in.
off the numbers again in order? That would be helpful for me.
Yeah, good idea.
In order,
Yeah,
did you say? Yes.
yes, please.
So we have 38, 71.
Hold on.
So it's 38, 71, 75,
Mhm.
134, 135, 137, and 143.
Is that the same list you have, Annie Rose?
I did not have 135 on my list.
135 is Ward 1.
Yeah,
Sorry, then it,
good.
I just had 137, 134 and 137. Yeah.
one thing that we might consider too is taking a step back and looking at the Chamber of Commerce affiliation, the social service affiliation, those other application characteristics that you saw, and then come back to this short list.
Sure, that's not a bad idea.
If you want to.
Well, my only thought on that is I feel like we ought to give everybody all the wards a level playing field. Like have 2 nominees from each ward and then do that work. So then everybody's treated the same
Yes.
Okay.
throughout the city. So then more Ward 6 people would have another shot.
So we can take these numbers and pick.
How about we all read them again and rank them each
And
and,
we need to.
yeah, see who kind of rises to the surface. Does
Yeah.
that sound doable?
Are we doing an alternate also? Because the other words have alternates.
Not all of them.
They don't. Not all words have alternates.
Not all counselors submitted alternates.
Oh,
Yeah. There was really,
so.
The purpose
Always
of the
have a plan B.
alternates, the purpose of the alternates are there in case one of the primary nominations withdrew as part of this process too. So I think we can easily move forward to just select the 2 for Ward 6.
and I selected my alternate in the assumption that the alternate would be potentially selected as an alternate.
Yes, that
That's
will
what
be
I
part
did.
of this
Same.
process as well.
Yeah.
Yes, so we will come back to that.
Yeah, no. So that's why our alternate list is quite small, but I think that they should be entertained as potential for selection or to be considered as the alternate, the 2 alternates. That's what I was.
Yeah,
Right, so
absolutely.
candidate 38 also identifies as a social service organization. In hindsight, I wish we would have asked them, what is the social service organization? There's so many to choose from. Again, that's a candidate who identified persons with disabilities as an important background and has served governmental organizations variety capacities as planner, economist, board commission member, expert witness where finance and government services is complicated. So anyway, try to assess their credentials. They don't add much in terms of diversity to the organization, but those are the pros and cons as I see it for that candidate.
Great. Would it be helpful for each one of you to have 2 votes and then we can just go through each one? I can call out their number and see how many votes and then we'll pick the top
Sure.
2.
That works for me. I have my top 2. I'm ready to go.
You guys are so ready.
I gotta hurry up. The heat's back on, so I'm gonna take the time.
All right. Well, then any votes for candidate 38?
Oh, I think,
Some folks aren't quite ready
give
anymore.
us
okay.
another couple minutes.
Almost there. Fast, we're not that fast.
I
One of the
appreciate
downsides
time
of
and
not being in the
consideration
room.
that you're.
So we did not have 78 on our.
But it is this list.
Okay. Just.
37 votes.
We're each picking top 2, is that what the plan is?
Yep.
Thank you.
I know 134 is one of mine. It's that person scored the highest for me in the first place. My other person will be candidate 75.
75 is fine.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
For my top two candidates.
Ah, that will never happen again.
Are you the same, Mayor Hunt?
Yeah.
So 75, 134.
I'm
I
one,
had written them down.
I'm 134 and 137.
Okay, mine was 75 and 38.
So the top two would be 75 and 134, with 137 and 38 as potential alternates for the consideration.
I think that sounds good.
Okay.
I think that was probably almost the most.
I think that was good.
Yeah.
I think that asked a lot of us, and I think we accomplished good things.
I mean,
I'm proud. I'm
we should
proud.
have been in that position.
Yeah,
And
me
then,
too.
Beautiful.
was there, then what was the alternate potentially?
38 and 137 could be alternates.
Okay,
If you want to have that.
38.
Yeah, and 38 was also a social service organization, so I had circled that thinking maybe I'll loop back.
Yeah.
When we get to that point.
and so that's one of the reasons I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so off of those, all right, so probably, all right,
Okay,
let's
Fantastic.
go.
Well done.
Step next step.
All right, next step. So as a reminder, we have to have at least one representative from each group. We've also included social service organizations on this list. So I was going to go through each one of these, and we can basically do a similar process where you can look through the candidates that there are the applicants that meet some of these characteristics and then have a discussion around which would be your top one or two choices. So one thing I wanted to point out within this is in terms of the applicants that came in, we had some applicants that selected each one of these criteria. You'll see some like Chamber of Commerce, there were 10 representatives, 20 who indicated they were business or property owners, and 12 from social service organizations. The other three categories just have 2 applicants that you'll be selecting between. In terms of overlap with the ward reps, we also have within that current slate, and this is not yet taking into account the 2 additional Ward 6 reps that were just selected, but we already had 1 person who said they were a Chamber of Commerce representative. We had 2 business or property owners on that list, 1 city employee union rep, and then 1 from social service organization. So we already have some of these categories met already. So I think it would make sense for us to start with Chamber of Commerce. One element I wanted to note there is that the Chamber itself did specifically nominate Raquel Moore Green, who she did fill out an application. You will see her listed here. That is their formal nomination from the CEO of that organization. But as you can see, there are additional applicants that noted that they have an association with the Chamber as well. So first order of business, you already have 1 Chamber of Commerce represented through the ward. So I guess the first question is, does it make sense to consider another applicant as well to really serve as sort of that dedicated Chamber of Commerce rep, and or within that thinking about how you may wish to consider Raquel Moore Green's application as she is the preferred nominee from the Chamber. Any questions on the Chamber of Commerce?
I mean, my reaction is thank you, Dan, if the chamber has identified Raquel Moore Green as their preferred chamber rep, I'm inclined to support that. Plus Raquel has worked with Mayor Hoy and I on budget committee. She's chaired budget committee. She chaired the last revenue task force.
Oh, I didn't know. I think she was on it.
Or served on it? Yeah, okay, well, maybe she didn't share it, but she served on it, and I mean, she was a pleasure to work with. She's a very balanced individual. I mean, I'm fine with just pushing the easy button and making Raquel our chamber person.
I agree completely. I think she was a great member of the budget committee, very reasonable. She's always worked well with all of us. I think she'd be great.
And so then we would also leave number 15, that's also represents
So there would be 2 representatives.
2 representatives.
Well, I mean, I think that the number 15 is saying that they're a member of the chamber. The chamber is telling us Raquel is their representative.
Okay, got it. I just wanted clarity.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, I think they're a member, and so I think you can draw certain conclusions from that, but I don't think they're the representative.
Okay,
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
so then we would not need to select another
I think they get one slot, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. I think
Got it.
There's just one slot for the unions, one slot for the chamber, one slot for
Yeah.
the others, so I think that seems fair.
okay.
Great. Well, that was an easy decision process for Chamber of Commerce. Done.
So this will
Would
listen.
it be, before we move into the business or property owner category, because that's quite a lengthy one, would it make sense to come to some of these smaller pieces
Yeah.
first, just so we see sort of who all is fitting in, because you have a more select list? Great.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's look at the Salem 350 applicants. We had 2 there, so I will give you some time and space to review those 2 applicants.
Well, that one's easy for me.
I know Ray served on the task force previously, the last revenue task force, Ray Quisenberry. He was a very thoughtful member, so
What are their candidate ID numbers?
30 and 31.
30, 31, okay.
I don't know 31 at all.
Neither do I.
I've never
I
heard
do.
of that person,
I
but
do.
30 was a prior member.
31, we worked on a nonprofit together. She's very conscientious. She's a science teacher, and works with youth. Those would be the things that I would point out.
Okay.
I support candidate 30. I'm familiar with Ray since we've already given his name, and yeah, I mean, and he has plenty of credentials. I think he'd be a great choice for that slot.
And I am fine with going with Ray.
So candidate 30 for Salem 350?
Yes.
Great.
Do we pick 2 or just 1?
No, just one.
Oh, just 1.
Just one.
Thank you.
There were 2 applicants who identified.
This is applicants. That's why I said that. I was confused. Thank you.
So then for the Latino Business Alliance, we also received 2 applicants there.
And they did not organizationally identify a preference to represent LBA.
So those applicants noted that they were associated with the Latino Business Alliance on their applications.
Okay, but we don't have anything from the LBA like we do from the chamber saying this is our preferred candidate, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
That's a tough call. I will say that candidate 32 is in a leadership capacity at LBA, which leads me to believe that might be a better representative on behalf of LBA. He identifies himself as the board president. He's also served on 2 boards and commissions, so he's familiar with city operations already. So I'm leaning towards candidate 32.
I agree completely.
Now, he lives in Dallas. Is that
Fine.
okay?
He owns property, he would qualify under the I own business or property in Salem. So there's some intersectionality there that could be beneficial.
For sure.
It's too bad we can't have 2 because the 33 is perfectly delightful as well, but I take, I take you guys on your word. I do not know either of these, and it seems to me that since we have the chair who's putting in his nomination, it would seem that we would go with that.
We certainly could have more than one. I feel like 32 is the way to go.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to keeping 33 in mind to fill another slot if one's available after all of this.
Great.
All right.
All right, so
32 it is.
32 for LBA.
We're on a roll now.
Truly. All right, city employee union reps. You also have 2 of those.
So I nominated the president of the AFSCME, Kathy Knock, as one of my nominees, just for that's worth. So she's listed on page 1.
But we could, I mean, Kathy would be an outstanding member of the task force in any capacity, full stop. We could have her as the union rep, and that would free up another at-large option for you, Mayor.
True.
Just
True.
throwing it out there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, either way, I would
Which one?
love to see Kathy on.
She's number
Number
6.
6, number 6. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
that would be fine too.
Just to throw it out there. And who's the other candidate number for city union?
34.
Oh, 34. Oh,
I had this person on mine and I was really interested. But I didn't really feel like there was a lot in the, you know how sometimes we were talking about how they don't really give you a lot to go on, you're kind of struggling to connect, but so they did not rise up on my list, but they do hit a few of the different categories that we're looking for as well, so very new to Salem from what I understand.
Yeah, very new.
Yeah, I think less than a year, so that was kind of my thing. I thought maybe that was a little bit, too, I don't know, maybe too soon to know or understand how the city works or maybe not works is the right word, but just who we are, what we
Yeah.
want to be, where we're going kind of thing. But those were my concerns. I don't know if they're, like I said, I don't know this person at all.
Is there a, no, yeah,
Well-
conflict? No, we obviously decided it's fine to have a city employee. We've already decided that's fine, so that's not a disqualifier.
And we're only needing, or we're only looking for one city employee.
Yeah.
union.
But we were talking about maybe capping Knox and then opening up an at-large. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
That would be an option, but
I think I
I'm
like
totally
that
fine either
option.
way.
I think I like that option. I think I'm thankful that you brought that up.
Well, I mean, that's, sometimes you get a candidate who's a twofer and it's always.
Yeah.
You know, that it can give you more options and, you know, perhaps there are other at-large persons who can help us meet the gaps.
Why don't we keep that in our pocket, and if we need it, when we look at the whole makeup and see like, okay,
Yeah.
are we needing another person, and then we would have an option there.
Okay.
That works?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
So I get let's then move on.
Please.
All right. Well, then the next two categories that we can consider are the business or property owner category and the social service organization category. Both of those we already have representation within the ward nominees, which is great. So at this point, we could choose to say, okay, we've met the minimum criteria. Now the consideration is if there's any additional folks we want to look at. If you would like to focus in on either of these categories, though, we could spend some time looking through to see, for example, if there's any other members from social service organizations that seem like really, you know, high priority candidates that you would potentially want to include.
Can we focus on social service for a moment? And I would very much like to advocate for number 39. This person's been like the chair of the budget, the school district budget committee, has been, I think, represents a lot of folks who are not yet represented well on this group, including from our Latino community, working with a social service agency that works with that population. I think that 39 would be an excellent addition and help us round out this group in a much fuller way.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I would be sad if this person put in an application and was not selected. So I really would like this, the second.
So 39. Linda, are you good with that?
I'm good with that, yes.
39. All right.
Are we doing two from social services or just one?
We have one already.
I had selected one for social services,
Number
for my ward. And I even called and spoke with her. I think she'll be great.
What's the organization, if you don't mind
I
asking?
did not ask her.
Okay, thank you. That's no problem.
I did not ask her, but I simply had a very brief conversation because she was heading into a meeting.
Okay.
And she was a candidate because she fits ethnicity, she fits social services, I liked her statement, so I'm very happy with her all the way around.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're to business or property owner.
Correct. Yes.
Can you tell us how many
We have several.
business or property owners we already have in our group? Any of those?
So we had two to begin with the ward overlaps. What I don't know is whether any of the additional 4 that we just discussed, or the additional 6, I suppose, that we just discussed also have overlap. So I would need to check that unless Courtney, you have that at top of hand.
I was going to start moving
I think for two.
things so that we could do that analysis, but I'm not there yet.
So we selected candidate 32 for as our LBA rep, and he does own a business in Salem.
And number 2 is one.
That's the elder. The senior, not
That's the senior.
that's the junior, not the senior.
Oh, the one here is,
Number 2, Scott
That is junior.
Junior.
okay,
Yeah, age 35.
yes.
So we have at least 3 business or property owner reps. We may
Okay,
have
so we're
one or
probably
two.
good on that. Do you think? I mean, what do you guys think? So we have side conversations going.
I think I believe they're adequately represented.
We have 3 business or property owners. Are you good? Vanessa and I both feel like that's enough. You
Plus
guys-
the chamber rep, which is also on top of that, even though she does not own a business specifically, they have a very powerful advocate in this task force. Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
Great.
I see that as 4, the royal 4.
yeah. I feel like we're,
It's a blush.
I feel like that category is adequately covered.
You mind if I close these blinds a little bit over there, or Dan, maybe I'll leave that to you, I
I think
if I touch them, I might rip something. In the video recorded
They
meeting.
fall apart.
Derek, thank you so much, appreciate that. Okay, cool. All right, Reese
Great.
Lightning, phew, let's move on.
All right. Well, we have 22 nominees on your current slate, essentially, with what we have. So we have the 18 ward reps plus chamber, Salem 350, LBA, social services, and the additional business or property owners that we just discussed. So that brings you to 22. So at this point in time, you could say, we are good. This feels like the right group to us. We don't need any additional candidates. You do, if you would like, have 8 more potential slots that could be filled if you wish to bring that number fully up to 30. So what direction would this group like to take?
I was wondering if you had the magic capacity to, earlier you were talking about the group of 17 and what those demographics looks like. Now we've just added to that. Is there any way that we could magically get those demographics now?
If we wanted to take a quick break,
Yes.
I could work on that. Yes.
we could do that. Do you want to break until 10 after?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I will
Okay.
just put that summary together.
I'm gonna send, what do you,
We will break until 10 after. Are we gonna go offline during that time or what are you
We
gonna
could
do?
just go outside.
Courtney, how does this usually work when they break?
I've never done a break on that.
I actually just keep it
You can
streaming.
just keep it streaming. We'll just be on break.
Offline, just keep it running.
Yeah,
That's
it's fine.
what I would do. I mean, she's going on break. I can still share with you guys. I would circle back to candidate 33 to provide more representation. There's multiple forms of representation the person provides. I think there was interest in a candidate. No? No? Apparently there is no.
I have some concerns about.
I take that, well, apparently I'm just not sure.
So I had a list of about 2, 4, 6,
Yes.
7 names that I liked from my board, some of which might fulfill other aspects of what we're trying to look for.
Okay.
I'm going to try to find it, which number he is, what of them is. And I don't know. Oh, these names are not in alphabetical order, are they?
Russ Beaton was on here and he was somebody that I was thinking about. He's sorry, I shouldn't have said names. 145. PhD in economics. Served on the one last time. I don't know if that would be somebody that we might consider. I know that we're heavy on that demographic.
Certainly something to consider. While we're on that same line, candidate 77, career in higher education, experience as a budget manager, managing budgets approaching 100 million annually, familiar with how different types of government funds, taxes, grants, unrelated business income can and cannot be used, trained in mediation, conflict resolution. 3 children, 2 of whom graduated from SKSD and another who was in high school, active park and library user. I thought that person had some impressive credentials and brings some added representation to the body as well.
Yeah.
I've never met this person in my life, but on paper, they sound like a great fit. So I think that candidate and the candidate you mentioned, 145, are both good potential additions.
I
What
agree.
was the one you were speaking of? I'm sorry.
77.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you got it.
What ones were you that?
Yeah, I'm trying to find, no, I'm gonna try to find them.
Sorry, we did give you a by ward list, so when we merged them all back.
Right, right.
It
No
does
worries.
create confusion.
There's, I mean,
I
there's
could
so many
probably,
ways you can sort it. I mean, how do you,
Yeah,
it's hard to know
it's
which way
fine.
to sort it, so it's fine. Figured it out.
I'm just,
I could probably search by first name and find the number of the candidate.
yeah, I just found. First name Paige.
What number?
just a second.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking to us.
85, right? Linda?
Let me just- Yes,
The name's familiar. I
Mhm.
can't remember why.
Yeah.
she's has, submitted some testimony. Yes.
Like preventing layoffs and preserving services.
Yeah. That certainly caught my eye too. Temperature fluctuations, this is crazy. You can't get whiplash from temperature fluctuations, but this is close. Like 3 times now in the course of an hour. Yeah. I don't know why I never noticed that before. It's hardly my first meeting in
It's
here.
worse in between the fence. If you're against the wall,
Uh-huh.
they come, don't sit even in the wall.
It's-
Are there other candidates you guys looking at? I should take a second look at.
I'm wondering about what
is
is
it?
100?
I don't know anything about the switch number in the certain.
Little 100.
Oh, interesting.
If you look over to the right,
Yep.
lived unsheltered
Mhm.
or under threat of losing shelter.
In an age group that we're
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah,
We're not missing, but
it has low
Low.
representation.
Yeah, I would be intrigued by that person too. Yeah. With that person.
So, I'm gonna give you some numbers.
Okay.
57. 79. 85. And 119. Tell me what you think.
Okay. Are you personally acquainted with any of these candidates? Linda?
79, I have met at Spain,
Yeah.
otherwise no.
I don't know, the small business owner selling microgreens. No, not represented on this. High demand now. Right. Hmm. Yeah, it's 57 is an intriguing bio.
hey, Dan, is there any other color of highlighting?
I have no objections to any of the numbers.
Wow, thank you.
Ask it, you shall receive.
It's like 15.
Ariel.
57 is, falls into the lower age bracket, that would be nice. Again, I'm just trying to find diversity with age,
Yeah,
work experience, life experience.
right, and 79, lived unsheltered or under threat of losing shelter. Spoke another language and age category 26 to 34. That's a good potential candidate too. Found some good ones. And I don't know much about 85. So, It's like, I'm gonna find out later why, I know, but I just can't quite place it.
We need to,
And I'm not as interested in candidate 119.
all right.
Yeah, I just feel the others provide lived experiences that we really need on this
I
task
shall
force.
remove that one from my list.
But, yeah. I think it really has to be- Go circling back.
You know, retired, going back over, you know, rereading things, because sometimes you might pick up on one thing, then you go back and you read it again, you go, oh.
Right. No, I hear you. I hear you. It helps go through the list several times.
Yeah, so I did a quick one, and then I went a little deeper, then I said, okay, now I'm gonna start making lists, and then, you know, so.
Yeah.
That was kind of the process. At first I thought, I just put them all in a bowl and pick, but then I decided not to do that.
I think you really found a gem in 79, honestly. But that, again, that's the person with experience of being in shelter or under threat of losing shelter. Other language barriers and age diversity. And, you know, I don't know, I think 79 was pretty strong.
Project was like actually took the list in my school.
Good for you.
It's like,
Gold star.
Who were our alternates that, the few counselors that did put them forward?
What's on this
Page
page?
three.
Oh, sorry, page two.
So 18, 19, 20, and 21, and then you all were talking about the possibility of revisiting 38, 37, and 137.
I thought we crossed off 38.
Those were just possibilities.
Possibilities. Different number than what I think you're thinking of.
Oh, could be.
So as we were going through the candidates for social service organization representation and for some of the other categories earlier, you had interest in those folks, and they just you preferred a different candidate for the purpose of meeting that minimum expectation. Okay. So again, the composition of the group is your choosing, and so hopefully Annie Rose is almost done analyzing the results, and we can consider how.
I never stood up.
What I'm trying to do is trying to balance the ward representation again too.
Yes.
So just trying to. Like 57. Pardon? Was that 57 that you liked a lot?
I have already forgotten. We looked at who 57 was ago. I thought Linda raised him, and that's our microgreens purveyor. That guy.
Okay. So maybe it was 79 that you were talking about.
I said out of the 4 that Linda identified, the one who is the shining star of that bunch is 79. Okay. We got person provides a lot of competing lived experiences that is well represented in this on our list so far.
One we're struggling with number 5. I wonder, could we change that
for the alternate was for.
And that's a discussion that we'd have to have.
So right now, the composition is that you have 4 at Ward 1, 2 at Ward 2, 3 at Ward 3, 2 at Ward 4, 2 at Ward 5, 2 at Ward 6, 2 at Ward 7, 3 at Ward 8, and 2 outside Salem. So it is heavier on Ward 1 right now.
Okay, sorry, could you go through those numbers again?
Yeah.
Just a minute.
Ward 1, 4, Ward 2, 2, Ward 3, 3, Ward 4, 2, Ward 5, 2, Ward 6, 2, Ward 7, 2, Ward 8, 3, and outside Salem 2.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I would be fine with adding 79. There are several other, again, we have an embarrassment of riches, lots of great people on here. 79 is one I would lobby for adding. And I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. We don't need to fill potential spots for the sake of filling them. And maybe we should consider alternates at this point. I don't know, just throwing it out there. Alternates don't have voting rights.
No,
Under
unless
this
somebody.
compensation.
Are we actually appointing alternates?
That's
The-
what I
I don't
understand.
In the task force charter conversations, there were a couple different ways we were talking about alternates, which may be confusing.
Yeah.
But we were talking about the task force being 20 to 30 people seated with the possibility of 2 alternates, just in case for some reason someone was unable to fulfill the remainder of their duties.
Okay,
So currently we have 20.
Currently,
22. I thought.
22, I think.
Oh.
I thought I heard Andy say 22.
So I thought board representations was 4 at Ward 1, 2 at 2, 3 at 3, 7
I feel like we should just appoint as many people as we think ought to be.
22.
And not, the concept of alternates is like, when you're an alternate juror, you kind of like gotta pay attention, but yet you don't really get to have a voice.
And I'm okay with that.
I feel like we should just appoint a sufficient number of people and if somebody drops out, then we'll still have a sufficient number of people.
Okay,
That's my
Andy Rose is ready.
and so are you looking at having 22 or 24?
I don't have a number in
You
mind.
don't have a number.
A number within the number that the council
Okay.
decided.
So then maybe what we have 4 alternates would actually just be added.
Well, we could. That would be one way.
Looks like
Andy
Andy's
Rose,
back. Yay.
I was asked and responded about ward distribution, and we're at 22, holding at 22 here. Do you want to share the composition of the group?
Yeah.
And then we had other nominees, other suggestions were floating about, but it will help guide the rest of the conversation.
Absolutely.
It's
Okay.
also possible that we might not appoint alternate candidates.
Might not have them.
Yes, and I believe the charter just says that there should be 2 alternates for the group in and of itself, so we can determine how we want to interpret that as well. But in terms of ward representation, I just noted here the 2 new candidates that we have added here, along with the numbers just for ease of reference. And then I placed in the other representatives, moving Kathy Knock over to that city employee union's representative spot. So within that, here's your new breakdown. 22 members, representation from each ward as well as outside Salem. We have primarily residents, but we did add, so with the new composition, there are now 4 business or property owners. We had some changes around the age diversity. We added a candidate who's under 25. We added a few in the 35 and 45 range and a few in the 65 plus range. In terms of racial, ethnic, language diversity, we now have 7 non-white applicants and 4 applicants who speak a language other than English at home. One of those 4 also overlaps with this group in the 7 as well. In terms of housing and security, we did not add any in terms of diversifying around single family homes, but we do have 4 applicants reporting that they've earned less than a livable wage in the last 5 years. So that is the general breakdown. I think my numbers add up here. What other conversation needs to happen in terms of making sure that this is a well-rounded group?
Well, just to sound like a broken record, candidate 79 would bring the living unsheltered experience, which we need more help in. So that's another, and age diversity. So that would improve age diversity by bringing, we would have a second person in the category of 26 to 34, plus the housing security diversity. And spoken another language. So that would help with some of these stats on here. And also.
Would you like to each share out if there, are additional candidates that you're highly interested in? Excuse me, go ahead.
Well, I also thought 77 was strong, adding more racial diversity. And also he's in the 45 to 54 category, but he has a lot of experience working on budgets, which I think would be pretty helpful to us also.
What number was it?
77.
And he also fits in diversity in the sense of race.
Yeah. And he says his family is very familiar with city services, so I find that's also helpful. It's like, if you can visualize the services that will be impacted by our budget, that's helpful.
I'm good with both of those.
And earlier,
79 and 77.
just to add to the mix, I believe, so we have 79, 77, earlier in the conversation, 33 was brought up, and I believe 38 was also brought up. So I don't know if we want to come back to either of those candidates as well.
Yeah, I think that we're
and
not moving
130.
forward on either of those.
Yeah.
Which two?
33 or 38.
Because the two that we've added, there's another one for Ward 4, Ward 2, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Ward 4. So that's.
So would we want to look at the one that's number 5 and potentially put in number 18?
How does the group feel about that?
And we're going to honor candidates nominated by our peers. I mean, that's, when I look at candidate 5 on paper, I'm not seeing a disqualifier here. So I mean, it's fine with me. I don't have a problem with it. There's nothing on paper here that would, to me, legitimate removing that person from the selection.
My only concern is that they repeatedly came in against any kind of new revenue. And that was kind of one of those qualifiers that we had talked about. And I totally get, because I get really uncomfortable, like you said, talking about not honoring a person's choice. But my only thing is, would we switch it with one that they've already put forward, which is 20, which they put forward in the alternate one from Ward 4.
Oh, yes, I said.
That's my only concern. If that's what she wants to do, I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna be a big believer in picking battles, and I don't think this is a battle worth picking in my opinion. So that's where I stand on it.
Linda, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that that number 5 doesn't make statements implying that they wouldn't be open-minded. I don't see their full application in the sense that they check both of those boxes. That would be nice to know. Maybe you have that. Because there has been so much presentation, when he's spoken, it's opposition. And I fear that then that may present an issue within the group.
Yeah, so I hear you for sure, and I have those concerns. My only other thought on this, though, is that we're not scrutinizing
Yes,
people who didn't come to council in that way, at that level.
true. That is
And
true.
so because this person chose to speak, then it seems like they're
That's
getting
a
a different
definite, yeah.
lens, and I'm not sure.
And it is.
That's a good point, Chris.
And who presented, and the counselor that presented them must have enough confidence or.
I have my concerns, but I'm fine leaving them.
For context,
like we're-
that applicant did check both boxes in
did.
terms
Okay.
of
If they're willing
indicated
to
there.
listen, I'm good.
Yeah.
I feel like we have a consensus then just to move forward with that person who's still there.
So, so we've added, have we agreed on 79 and one other? And that brings us up to 24.
Was there agreement on 77?
I need some forward.
Page 10 of 17.
Yeah, 77 was my idea, so of course it's brilliant.
It's brilliant.
Of course.
Can I ask for, the breakdown on gender, where we're at right now?
Good question.
That's a great question, and we did not ask about gender identity, so that was not part of the application process.
Okay.
So no,
But we could probably look at names and have an idea.
draw some conclusions.
I'm good. We done?
So we have 22 candidates and I'm not clear about 77 and 79 for 24.
We're not clear yet either.
Excellent.
My only other thing that I brought up, and I know Ward 1 is heavy, but I did bring up Russ Beaton as an idea to add, and I know, and I don't know how the group feels about that. But it was just another option. I know we're only at 22,
Currently, we have
24.
10 females that I can.
We
79
officially have,
would help you, would improve your odds there.
Yes, it would.
So it seems like it's about half and half.
Almost.
I'm in support of adding Mr. Beaton and 77, 79.
And what was the number that you just?
So that would be a 25 member group, which would be odd in case there needed to be any votes or consideration.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
What do you guys think about that?
I'm in favor of those three.
Yes, 145, 145, 79, and
77.
77, yeah.
Linda, you're good with that?
Yes.
And Vanessa, you're good with that?
Yep.
Sounds like we have consensus.
77.
Total of 25 and no alternates.
70 and
So
77, whichever Beaton was.
145.
Okay, great. Sorry, I wasn't reading on that.
Sorry, Annie.
no. So 145, 79, 77, we will add that. So we will have the 25 slate there. In the charter, it does say that there will be 2 alternates selected. So I'm not sure if that's something that we need to make that selection now, or just in the case of if some member of this original 25, for whatever reason, was unable to participate.
I think we have to pick those people now so that they can be participating.
And I believe that the alternates can be selected from anyone on this list. We could be looking at the alternates that were part of the ward nomination process, but I think it's any applicant that has not yet been selected as part of that 25 could be an alternate.
I would like to toss 90 out there.
Will be another, I thought that was business, yes, past business ownership, they didn't identify.
85 was one that a lot of us thought was good.
Would we also review her?
Either of those are fine with me.
$126 was also a past Salem City Budget Committee member. North Gateway Redevelopment Advisory Board, Highland Neighborhood Association, Cultural and Tourism Promotion. So lots of civic engagement there.
What about, we didn't appoint 127, did we?
No. Oh, I have that one starred and marked and highlighted.
Yeah, I was thinking, let's toss 127 in there.
Sure.
To Ward 6, which is a good,
Yeah. Yep.
we need more representation from Ward 6, for
Yeah.
sure.
Are you thinking that making this person alternate specifically?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're on alternates.
That's fine with me. I'm fine with any of the ones you guys have raised.
Well, that's two if we go with those two.
We
Oh, which
thinking,
120, what, 6 and 127? Is that what you're?
no, nobody said 126. 127. I have down 127, 90, 85, and 38. I was thinking, what do you think about 85 and 127? I know you liked 90 though. You go back to that. Please.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Ward 2.
They're both Ward 2, 85 and 90 are both Ward 2. No, but I have recently moved to Salem.
Yeah.
The city as uncontained costs is not exercising all of the revenue sources that other public employers utilize. Interesting.
So maybe 90?
I mean.
Ward 2 representatives of London.
Do you have any thoughts, Linda?
He was certainly on my list of kind of like the second tier. And I would be okay with 90. Or I would be good with 85 as well, either one. They were both higher on my
I
list.
did say 126, but nobody else chimed in, so I let it go.
That's why I wrote it down.
I think we have consensus on 127 for sure, as an alternate.
Yeah.
But I don't know who the other one's gonna be.
And for me, 85 or 90 would be almost kind of equal, in the sense of how I saw them being presented. It might end up being age or gender or something else that tips me to tip the balance.
Okay, so what's it gonna be?
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting to hear from her.
Right.
She has brilliant ideas, so.
It does.
Come now. Only I'm allowed to make self-deprecating humor.
That's not
why
deprecating.
It's, no,
Just complimentary.
Right. What are your numbers again? I will make
We're
this
picking
progress.
between,
Can you,
We're
Penny
picking
Rose, can
between
you tell us
85
what we have number wise and gender, simply by looking at their name,
Those two.
not how they identify?
We must go with get
I
more downtown.
don't feel totally comfortable
Okay,
making
no,
that
okay.
assumption
All right, so I just
at
did
this
it
point
because
in
of
time.
names.
I mean, 90 is fine.
So 127 is your preferred alternate, and then you're looking at
85.
85 and 90.
85 or 90.
Sounds like, Vanessa, did you just say 90? I didn't.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, they're both great, but I
It's
by
fine.
I think 90 might
90.
be better. There it goes. So
90.
we did it. Yeah.
Good work, everybody.
So 127 and 90 for your alternates.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Great.
I'll send over this to you so that we can do the composition for the staff report on the 22nd.
Great. That sounds good. Well, I am incredibly impressed by this group and this meeting. This was a lot of information to get through, so thank you so much for making it so efficient.
Yeah, I think that went well. Good job, everybody. Thanks. Annie Rose and Courtney and counselors. Thank you.
Yeah, all your work.
Yeah.
You guys
And
did.
Dan, you were
Courtney,
critical.
thank you.
I'm happy to help.